interaction is a greater understanding of safeguarding the indigenous land. We feel that such grassroots communication across the world involving the Bangladesh diaspora with local communication would be quite a way helping the climate cause. With the above perspective in mind, more effort is required by the environment activists in Bangladesh in building international connections. This will provide the goal of community with the knowledge of climate peril that Bangladesh faces. This is not one-way street. However, for successful environmental Bangladeshi activists should be knowledgeable of urgent global issues, whether it is the fight for the renewable energy or safeguarding the Sundarban or indigenous people right and to their lands or local efforts to clean up rivers from pollution across the world. So these are my presentation. I just try to raise three issues of our experience. I want to say 2-3 words. Maybe I have 1-2 minutes time. We are working together with Australians, like a lifting coal. They are having big project, Adani project, Australia's largest coal project, which is they intended to export from here to India, and India will redirect the ship to Bangladesh for ramp up, which will greatly affect Bangladesh Sundarban. You know, you might be aware that this supposed to be in India, but India tactically changed the place and built it in Bangladesh. The work is going on, and government is not listening to us. So these are few issues that Bangladesh cannot resolve until unless we have people behind us. And I can let you know, the Australian activists are with us. So in that context, I can tell you that until unless we have integrity with the international community, we cannot achieve anything, not anything at all. So when I came to Australia, I took a priority task to get connected with the international community, environmentalists, social justice people who fight together, work together, and we make it. Only one instance I will finish my words, that the climate change advisor of the Australian government who participated in the last international conference, we met him, and I took a scientist with me, and we give him a papers why Bangladesh is dangerous, to raise that issue there in the forum. I told them I'm Australian, Bangladeshi Australian, and it is my right to raise the issue internationally. And you will be happy to know that the gentleman, Justin Lee, he was the ambassador in Bangladesh. I had a good connection, still I have a good connection. He raised this international, and people became surprised how the Bangladeshi issue he brought in the forum. So that is how it works. So we need to do that. And you might have heard about that there's a lot of speeches for indigenous community, 85 years old, Gary will be speaking, and how they fought and fighting to save their motherland, the climate. And it is also experience good for indigenous, and I am trying to get connected with each other so they can work together. So I want to finish now, and thank you very much for listening. If you have any question, I can answer. Otherwise, I will come to you again, even if needed. With the help of Aishna, I will organize another program to share experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kamal Hassan Khan. You know, the title of your talk, Tackling Local Issues with a Global Perspective, is so important. And I think also your work shows how you're doing that, right? It's not just a talk that you're giving or a paper that you're presenting, you're doing this work. And I very much appreciate that. So thank you. Do we have any questions from our audience here? Folks can either put the questions in the chat or go ahead and raise your hand, and we can call on you. Any questions for Mr. Kamal Hassan Khan? Well, if there aren't any questions from the group, I might ask you some questions. If that's all right. I see. Sure. So one of my questions was, you were saying that you recommend that more effort be made between environmental activists in Bangladesh and to build an international connection
Yes,
with activists globally.
yes.
How do you recommend that this be done? What are some really tangible steps that local activists can take to connect with international activists, or vice versa? Any recommendations from your own experience would be appreciated.
Yeah, like exchanges, their email address, phone number, connecting with the Facebook. These are I have started doing that. You will be seeing the minister, environment minister, will be speaking to today. So environment minister activists from the grassroots, they spoke to me, indigenous people. I have taken few interviews, I have more than 10 interviews for this conference, and they are happy to know about it. So connecting is possible, but that connection should not be misused to collect money. It is connecting movement with the activists to get stronger movement, not collecting money. But what we do, we have international connection first only to collect money, donations, which I don't like. I know it's all right. Sometimes reasonable is all right. But most of to be honest, this is my experience from Bangladesh and here. There are some people who take a part because there is some fun. Unless they don't move. To be honest, I'm working here more than 20 years in BAPA-BEN. I have not taken donation from the government. The government, they came to me, take money, Kamrul, I have a money. All he came to me, she spoke in the meeting and said categorically, Mr. Khan, we have a money all you can take it. We said, we don't need money. We need your support. That's all that will do, because it is our action. Then finally, I bragged, then Mahmoud Bhai, possibly, he died. He died. The bank CEO, Bragg. He came and he gets some money contribution from Mazi. That is the reality. That is the reality. So getting connection is very important. Like Dilruba Shana, she said about the children. I like it, but it should not be in lectures. She should act. I know she is active, but she should take some steps in Bangladesh. I can connect him. There's a lot. I have a connection with the Kochi Kacha, Khalagor. Every day I'm talking to them, and I'm going to have a forum, because this organization is getting weaker. They are the backbone, children's. If we can make them aware, we can do it. So getting connected with them, do something there is a very good idea. Even I will ask Dilruba, request Dilruba to take some action in Australia as well. There is a big children group who are interested to know about environment. We have few hundred, few thousand children here. He can start working in a grassroots and starting with his grandchildren. He has a beautiful grandchildren. He can start with them. I can get minimum 100 people behind her in Melbourne. So let us start here, and this will, by this example, people will be in Bangladesh will be inspired, and let us get connected. I'm going to connect with youth organization here in Canberra with the young people. I talked to Alamgir. You might know him, Green Voice. He's the general secretary. I spoke him to him, and I'm going to get connected with the Youth Federation, those who are leading organizations in Australia. So these are the way, and it is possible. They are very happy that we have to talk to them only. Only we have to talk to them and get connected, exchange their email address, phone number. It is now very easy. Coronavirus at least done one thing, that internationally you are connected. So take it as a good opportunity and use it for the humanity. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kamral Khan. You really highlighting that connecting is as easy as joining a Facebook group, reaching out to somebody, and beyond just reaching out for funds, but reaching out for these social ties, these social connections. And a forum like this is a place to start, right? That we can connect for if you see something that you're interested in these presentations, feel free to message somebody in the chat. And that is just one way we can begin these conversations. So I want to switch gears a little bit and move to our last speaker.
One thing, just 1 minute.
Let's come back if we have more time at the end, because
okay, go ahead.
Running a little tight on time.
Go
all
ahead.
right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, so now we'll start with Dr. Mohamed Kabir Hassan. So if you could go ahead and just introduce yourself quickly, just tell us where you're joining us from. Again, I'll give you the warning at 1 minute left, and then it time's up. Thank you so much.
Good night from New Orleans. So I'm from one of the disaster-prone area of the United States. I'm a professor at the University of New Orleans. So I'll take a slightly different angle of this environmental sustainability, the role of finance, and specifically a specific type of finance, Islamic finance, that is about 25% of the total banking industry in Bangladesh right now. So when we talk about finance, ethical finance or sustainable finance, ethical finance actually brings value to the society. But how they do it? By achieving social good while generating financial returns. And what does it mean? How social issues are being addressed to optimize positive impact on society, economy, well-being, and development, and contributing back to the community. It does social good, provision of specific goods or services aimed at benefiting the society, and also doing the social good, a behavioral outcome to achieve desired result. For example, dealing with the underserved, economic and more empowerment, social initiative, and so on. So when we talk about addressing specific social problems, when we say providing social goods, we mean that we want clean water, clean air, improving healthcare, improving sanitation. And doing social good means we want to avoid weapons, gaming, alcohol, and other activities that harm the society both individually and societally. So the greater economic empowerment and inclusion to take into account the impact of climate change on the communities, making finance transparent and easy to understand. So Islamic finance, a specific brand of new finance that is happening all over the world, is about $3.5 trillion industry right now. What does it do? It advocates social trust, cooperation, solidarity. It requires a balance between individual rights and rights of the society and state. And it doing good is encouraged, does not subscribe to encroachment on anyone's property rights. It promotes fairness, promotes comprehensive human development, and stimulates economic activity and entrepreneurship while addressing poverty and inequality. So environmental sustainability increasingly integrated in the finance. It's not only Islamic finance, it's conventional finance as well. Now, you know, the Paris Agreement 2016, participation 197 countries. In ethical finance, the most attention is given to environmental sustainability. It prompts increased integration of environmental sustainability into finance. So how do we differentiate between ethical finance and Islamic finance? There are a lot of commonalities between these two. Yes, ethical finance outlined the stated intent, and environmental sustainability is one of the goal. And Islamic finance has its roots in the Islamic religion. But if you look at both have a clear articulation on environmental consideration, whether you talk about ethical finance or Islamic finance. Specifically, when you mean Islamic finance, do good and prevent harm by treating the environment in a fair and just manner, moderation, avoiding wastage and excesses, treat every living human being with mercy, and duty of care to protect and keep safe for the next generation. So in ethical finance, the most attention is given to environmental sustainability, product offerings. It comes in the form of product offerings and instruments, creation of markets, sustainability reports by corporations, development of capital markets, impact investing, exclusion of investment that damage the environment, and application of ESG criteria, environmental, social, and governance consideration, and that is being included in financial decision making by the institutions. So what are the areas of focus? There has to be a clear articulation in ethical finance, reducing carbon footprint, avoiding wastage of resources, increasing use of renewable energy, making positive impact to the planet, focus on addressing global warming, climate change, pollution, deforestation, and endangering wildlife is to be avoided. So in order to measure this thing, there are different movements. The Global Alliance on Banking for Values, Fortune 500 changed the world list, Dow Jones Sustainability Indices, FTSE for Good Index, and Treated Impact Investment. So these are the different movement that is going on in order to bring environmental issue into financial decision making. So how do they do this? They have different indices. So they look at the operation of different financial institutions. They create of the application of ESG, like development of indices focused on environmental sustainability. For example, Dow Jones Sustainability Indices. So they have a criteria they look at for the all US companies, and they come up with the sustainability index. FTSE Good Index, you have the development of dedicated markets and dedicated financial instruments. You have the green bond principle, green financing, you have the climate bond initiative, and so on. So if we look at Islamic finance is more specifically in a granular way, there is a detailed framework for assessment of the environment has to be yet developed, but these are the fundamental principle. Adl, that's an Arabic word, treat the environment just and fairly. Wasat, middle path of moderation, avoid wastage and excesses. Amana, the trust and custodianship of the earth. So it is a custodianship to us by God, those who believe in religion. Treat every living human beings with mercy. So there are sustainability focused asset classes in Islamic finance, emergence of Sharia compliant sustainability focused asset classes. We have green sukuk, we have SRI sukuk and Sharia compliant sustainability funds. Securities Commission of Malaysia make green sukuk in guidelines, and you know Malaysia is a laboratory of implementation of Islamic finance. Adoption of the ESG criteria would be consistent with Islamic finance and can serve as a powerful tool for advancing environmental sustainability agenda. So when you look at more granular form, so adoption of ESG framework, we can apply this when you talk about financial institutions. We have the Global Alliance for Banking on Values, United Nations Global Impact. When you do this ethical and SRI related products and services to the Green Finance Initiative, SRI, we have ESG related indices, as I mentioned before, FTSE for good, Dow Jones Sustainability Index. We can also have ESG related capital market indices like green bond and climate bonds. Now, when you bring to Islamic finance, so Islamic finance, it excludes business with haram elements or bad elements. Ensure business is aligned to the requirement of the principle of Sharia, and ensure the financial and other operation aspects are conducted within the permissible limits. So what is the recommendation for the future of this sustainable finance along with Sharia finance? Develop commonly accepted standards on environmental sustainability, sourcing for bankable projects based on environmental sustainability to encourage more private sector participation, development of governance process, etc. across many diverse stakeholders, and for Islamic finance, integrating ESG screening after Sharia process. So there is a common core between this Islamic finance and ethical finance. It has a long-term orientation and sustainability. It's financial inclusion, ethical values, economic well-being, and preserving the interests of the next generation. So there are 5 aspects of Maqasid of Sharia that I say is the preservation of life, protection of religion, protection of intellect, and protection of progeny and protection of wealth. And we can map all the different SDGs with each of this objective, and this objective is for the protection of the entire human being. Now, speaking about the concept, what are the empirical evidence on this thing? So there has been a lot of studies done, including some of my own. The majority of studies comparing Islamic and conventional stock indices, there is a statistically significant difference in performance, sometimes some outperform of the Islamic indices. So depending on the data, region, and time, the Islamic finance outperform conventional finance outperform Islamic finance, or there is no difference between these two. But when you talk about SRI and conventional investment, there's a study by 2050, Ravelli and Vivani concluded in the meta-analysis, the corporate social responsibility is neither a strength nor a weakness stock market performance. We have SRI and Islamic investment, Abdus Salam, both Islamic SRI funds exhibit performance persistence. Efficiency of socially responsible investment funds is slightly better than Islamic funds. And I have a piece 2017, Islamic mutual funds perform better than SRI, which in turn perform conventional counterparts. So there are also other empirical paper. So what we did recently, I'm working on a couple of papers with a group of Italian scholars. So assessing the impact of combined ESG and Sharia screening on market risk and cost of capital of non-financial firms. So do we have a paper in 2020, as ESG scores increase, the risk mitigating effect is stronger for Sharia compliant firms than for conventional ones. leading to a lower level of financial market risk for firms highly committed to CSR. And the second paper achieves higher ESG score, provides benefits to firms in terms of the cost of equity and risk in highly Sharia concentrated emerging markets. So the main takeaway message of this empirical exercise is that combining Sharia and ESG criteria improves the financial performance of the banking industry and non-banking industry as well. That means they cater more to the environmental needs. So this paper that I'm talking about, there's a huge world database. We sort of take data from 4,624 non-financial firms with the ESG score from different sources. We try to break the data into different regions. So you need to do some empirical work. This is our tool as an economist. So you have the market risk on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, you have
about
different
1
types
minute
of
left.
variables. So what is the result of these things? I just want to show you one table. If you look at the interaction between ESG and Sharia, it shows that it reduces the risk, it reduces idiosyncratic risk and systematic risk as well. When you try to granularize this ESG, and if you take the environment itself and we interact with Sharia, it also shows a very stronger performance. That means better performance for this institution, those are engaged into this kind of activities. So there are more similarities than differences between SR and Islamic investment. Islamic investments provide better and risk-adjusted performance during crisis. Both Islamic and sustainable investment can provide portfolio diversification benefits. So is there a convergence? Yes. Dow Jones Market Sustainability Index, Sharia investor can reconsider also social and environmental aspects since SRI started by religious groups. So final thing, how do we align those objectives with the Sharia or the goal of Sharia that is good for all humanity? You have to adopt Maqasid of Sharia approach in endorsing Islamic finance products. You have to align Islamic finance with SDG, align Islamic finance with circular economy, align Islamic finance with impact investing, align Islamic finance with ethics, and align Islamic finance with value-based intermediation.
Excuse me,
So
your
the final
time is up, sir.
slide, beyond financial stability and building a safe and sound financial system lies forms of the finance that have longer term orientation, which focus on sustainability and reinforced by ethics. Therefore, they provide the foundation to achieve the aspired economic advancement and development and keeping the environment in balance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So definitely food for thought in terms of thinking about how these different frames of thinking about finance might intersect and have similar goals. Let me see if we have any questions from the audience. So a question coming from Ahmed Badruzman: what makes Islamic finance do better in sustainability indices? So I guess that's also getting at a question I had as well, is what is potentially the causal mechanism behind this?
The causal mechanism is that in Islamic finance, there are two types of filter. We talk about this Maqasid of Sharia, we talk about protection of life, religion, progeny, wealth. And so these are the basic human values. It's regardless, it may come from Islam as a religion, but this is permeates in every religious tradition. So now Islamic finance has something that you really, for example, if we talk about the financial filter, there is no riba. And there has been tons of studies done that interest creates inequity, creates division within the society. So in Islamic financial product that you create, it does not involve with riba. So it is more or like partnership type of financing. You share risk and return together. And you cannot, are not supposed to invest into activities or promote any activities that individual harm and also harm the society. We talk about weapons, we talk about the activities, alcohol in a sense, it comes from the religious root, but you talk about environmental degradation. So whenever a company, a bank wants to provide financing to a project, it must look into the environmental impact of this project before it gives the financing. And in Bangladesh, either way, we talk about Sundarban, the project, the coal mine. I mean, I'm sure that their banks are involved into financing this thing. And the banks must look at whether they should give financing to these activities. And that will be a deterrent from the financial aspect as well. So that's why the Islamic finance brought the environmental sustainability goal into picture. And that helps promote the environmental, protecting the environment for the future generation.
Thank you so much for this perspective and outlining kind of what this overlap is. Do we have any other questions from folks in the audience before I actually noticed that we actually only have 1 minute left in our session here. So if you wouldn't mind stopping sharing your screen for now. And we're going to wrap up. I just wanted to say a couple of comments in closing. I see a few folks have put their email addresses, and a couple of folks also asked if there was a full paper that we could see for Dr. Mohamed Kabir Hassan. So if you are asking for that access of the paper, maybe you can share your contact information there. I'm sorry we won't have a chance to get to all of the questions, but what I did want to do is thank again all of our speakers for sharing their work with us. And really highlight that the intersecting themes in this panel here, looking both at economics and civil society, give us a sense of all of the different ways that we can broaden both our scope if we're looking at something like Islamic finance and thinking about how that can intersect with environmental movements, but also think about different ways that we can engage citizens, whether that's looking at the local and global, as Kamar Hassan Khan emphasized for us, or whether that means engaging young people in a variety of different ways that Dilruba Shahana outlined for us, and looking at citizen engagement similarly as Mahmoud Farouk reminded us. And I think finally also thinking about ways in which different pandemics like the COVID-19 pandemic that our paper from Sri Lanka focused on, how health and the environment will continue to intersect. All of these are so important to consider. So I won't keep any more of your time. We're right on time here, but these are just all really important issues to consider. I personally have to run up to another session, but thank you all for joining. Let's continue these conversations, connect through the BAPA Facebook group, the BEN Facebook group, and I look forward to seeing you all in our many other sessions as well. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So session is closed. We have another panel analysis session from 10:30. It's another link. So I request all audience to join the another meetings by using the another ID password. Thank you, everyone. We are going to close this meeting now.